The walls are broken, and the gates are burned. This is a message that Nehemiah received from his brother Hananiah as he inquired of him concerning the state of Jerusalem. Friends, as we look tonight in the book of Nehemiah, Nehemiah chapter 4, it breaks our hearts when we think of the state that had fallen on Jerusalem, on Israel, on Judah, as a result of their own sins. And today we are engaged in this type of warfare. We're engaged in this type of work.
Yes.
The work that involves building the walls. We may not be building a physical wall tonight, but we're building the structures of the church in the sense that we maintain doctrinal soundness. We speak where the Bible speaks, and we remain silent where the Bible is silent.
Yes.
For me, that's a wall. A wall keeps something out, and as well as it keeps things in.
Yes.
Those who are on the inside will stay on the inside, and those who do not need to be inside will be kept on the outside. What am I saying right there? There are those who seek to break down these walls, to attack the church, and the walls are there. The gospel is there.
Yes.
To maintain that soundness, to maintain the borders and the barriers that we have in terms of doctrinal righteousness.
Yes. Yes.
And this is what we uphold, friends. But Nehemiah, as he heard this report, it broke his heart. In Nehemiah chapter 1, we read that Nehemiah fell on his knees and cried out to God. Notice Nehemiah 1 and verse 4. So it was when I heard these words that I sat down and I wept and mourned for many days. I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. How many of us, when we look around and we see the state of the church, that it breaks our hearts? Yes. I pretty much grew up in the church, and there are many of those who sat beside me who are no longer there with me anymore. They turned their backs on God.
Yes.
They walked away because troubles came, friends. And we must understand that there are some things that may come our way that will cause us to look the other way and not look to God. But we must remain true to the cause. But Nehemiah, as he heard this message, it broke his heart. Nehemiah fell on his knees and cried to God. Not only that, but Nehemiah prayed to God, begging his forgiveness for Israel, knowing that they had been in bondage. This desolation had come upon the people of God,
yes,
not because God was not good enough to them, but they had turned away from God. And when we as a people turn away from God, friends, no good will come of us. God wants the best for us. He will use even our adversaries to bring about that good in our lives. It's funny the way God works, but He is God. Nehemiah heard this news. He cried out to God. We want to look on some things tonight concerning building the walls. And what happens when the people have a mind to work. You see, many folks think that, having a mind to work means that everything will go okay. It's not true. That's when trouble comes. And you all know what I'm talking about tonight. That's when trouble comes. My manager, when I worked in finance a little bit back home, he would always say to me when I performed well, he said, you know what? No one kicks a dead dog. In other words, when you're doing well, that's when everyone wants to get at you, wants to pull you down.
That's right.
But he said, you know what? They're only doing that because no one kicks a dead dog. You're active and you're working and you're doing well. That's why they're out for you. It's just the same with the work of the Lord.
yes,
They're out to get us, friends. Nehemiah, as he heard this news, he gave them, first of all, the charge.
Yes.
Nehemiah gave them a charge to rebuild. We all need that charge from time to time.
yes,
Nehemiah told them the desolation that they were in. Nehemiah reminded them that they were in this because of their own sins. Nehemiah also charged them that, you know what? Let us arise and build the wall.
Yes.
That's what Nehemiah charged them with in Nehemiah chapter 2. He gave them this charge that, you know what? We're not alone on this job, but God will be with us. It's one thing to know when you're doing that work all by yourself, but to know that God is with you.
Yes.
Friends, that's consolation for me. To know that the battle is not mine. It does not belong to me, but the battle is the Lord's, friends. And to God be the glory for that. But we notice the charge that Nehemiah gave. Now we want to get into the meat of the lesson. And that's coming from Nehemiah chapter 4. We looked at the charge earlier that Nehemiah gave. Now we'd like to examine the challenges that came with building that wall. Someone says, but if we're doing it for the Lord, it's going to, there'll be no challenges. It's not true. You'll probably have more challenges when you do it for the Lord. I've heard many Christian folks say, you know what? I did not have these many challenges when I walked in the world, when I was with the world. But as soon as I became a Christian, the challenges came. But you know what? In the midst of those challenges, we have hope in God. We have hope in the Lord. I want you to go in Nehemiah chapter 4. We're going to put our anchors down a little bit and stay right there a little for tonight. Look what happens in Nehemiah chapter 4. As Nehemiah gave the charge, friends, believe it or not, the challenges came. Nehemiah gave the charge and the challenges came. If you look at me in Nehemiah chapter 4, we'll read probably the first 2 verses. Notice what it says. But it so happened when Sanballat heard that they were rebuilding the wall, he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria and said, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish? Stones that are burned? Friends, we must understand right here that when we're working for the Lord, when we're building for the Lord, criticisms will come. We're going to look at some challenges. Criticism came here as they built the wall. What about us today? They mocked them and they said, if a fox goes up on that wall, it's going to tear down. Now, what does a city without walls mean? It means that God, it was a sign that God had left that city. It was open to the enemy, susceptible to anyone who wanted to come in and attack them. And therefore the wall needed to be built, friends. But as they built this wall, as they started this good work for the Lord and for the future of Jerusalem, here came criticism. Criticism came along and they said, will they fortify this wall? It's like us today, friends. As we work in the church, there'll be many who criticize us saying, what are they doing over there? What do they expect to achieve if they're not using instruments? What is it they expect to achieve if they're only preaching the gospel of Christ? There are many brethren who will criticize. There are many who will say, you know what? This cannot be done. We can't have this carpet in here. We can't have this type of pews right in here. There are many who will criticize the church for the good work that they're doing. They'll probably even say, let's leave that to the other denominations rather. Leave that to the Jehovah's Witnesses. Let them walk in the community. No. We have our minds on the work. Nehemiah 4:6 says, so built we the wall, and the wall was joined to the half thereof. Why? The people had a mind to work. When we have a mind to work, friends, we will be criticized. But when criticisms come, you know what? Keep on working for the Lord. Knowing what you're about, knowing what your purpose is here on earth. Did they criticize Jesus the Christ? As he walked the earth? Oh yeah. They said you're the son of, you're of the devil. Christ said, how can a devil cast out devils? A kingdom divided among itself can never stand. It doesn't make sense. But I'm just saying that criticisms will come. But keep on building for the Lord, friends. No matter what, remember that the wall must be built. Purity must be maintained in the church. And it depends on me and it depends on you. Build that wall. Are we done yet, brother? Not at all. Go down in chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. Someone says criticism is all, then I can take that. But let's look at verse 7 and 8 of chapter 4 in Nehemiah. Now it happened when somebody, you're going to hear these names over and over throughout Nehemiah. These guys were troublemakers, but to say the least. But let's read. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored. A good work is going on. And the gaps were beginning to be closed. That they became very angry. Look at verse 8. And all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. Not only were they criticized, but they also conspired against them, friends. They conspired against them to cause the work to cease. Believe it or not, I know we're here. But there are many who are conspiring probably right now in the world to stop that church, stop the mouth of that church that preaches the gospel of Christ. Stop that church that says, unless a man repent and is baptized, he shall be saved. There are those criticizing, saying they believe in baptism, but all one needs is a sinner's prayer. It's not true. And for that fact, many are conspiring to stop the work of the church. But did conspiracy stop Nehemiah and the workers? No. You know what, friends? They kept on building the walls of Jerusalem. The walls had to be built. Integrity had to be restored to Jerusalem. Purity had to be there again. And God would be their God again. But criticisms came. And conspiracies also came. There are many who have even conspired against the Lord's people individually, wanting to stop them, saying things about them that aren't good. But friends, even when those times come, do not turn away from God. Keep on building the walls. Keep on maintaining doctrinal soundness. Keep on living for the Lord. Whether you believe it or not, and everyone wants you to remain a Christian. I've heard persons say, you know what? He will not last 3 months. He will not last a week. Well, you know what? We can prove them wrong by building that wall, by staying true to the cause of Christ. Someone says, you know what? Was that all that they face? I can take it. Look down at me in verse 10. Notice what happened right here. Then Judah said, the strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. Friends, not only will criticisms come, not only will complaints come, but you know what else we have right here? We have the complaints, rather. Criticism will come, conspiracy will come, but even complaints will come. One may be wondering, where was this complaining coming from? It was not from the outside. It was from the inside, friends. You see, it's one thing when the complaints come from the outside. But when it comes from the inside, what are we going to do? What will we do when the complaints come from the inside? The men of Judah said, we are getting weak, Nehemiah. There's so much rubbish around us. We're not able to build this wall. We cannot evangelize this community. Door knocking is no longer effective. And just as a disclaimer, no one put me up to this lesson. This lesson is from the Word of God. Just so we know. But I'm telling you, friends, complaints will come. But to the complainers, we ought to say, you know what? Stop complaining and join me in this great work. Stop complaining and help me build these walls. But complaints will come. The men of Judah complained. There's too much rubbish. Some are saying we're just few numbers. That's a favorite saying back home when I spoke of evangelism. Oh, we're just few in numbers. But I believe that God can and will take a few and do a lot. He chose 12 men. And they took the gospel to the world. And even when they were being persecuted, they kept on preaching that gospel message. What about us tonight? When complaints come, do not walk away from God. It breaks my heart at times to know that God is the one who always gets shafted. He's the first one. The person say, hey, I'm not coming back. Someone complained about me and that I sing too loud or preach too loud. And I'm not coming back. Don't walk away from God. Stay with Him, friends, and build that wall. Someone says, oh, complaints and criticisms and conspiracies, I can take it. But go down with me to verse 11 of the text. And notice what happened here. Notice what it says. And her adversaries said, they will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst to give them a flower bouquet? No. A certificate of participation? A trophy to say, job well done? Not at all. Until we come into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease. What will we do when the threats come, friends? What will we do when our lives are on the line? It's a tough question. It's hard to answer, and I would caution everyone not to answer readily. Peter said, Lord, I'll die for you. I go to prison for you. But Christ said, no. Before the cock crows 3 times, you deny me. But notice here that we have this charge and this challenge. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 10 reminds us, be faithful unto death, friends. What will we do when our lives are on the line for Christ? Will we keep on building, or will we denounce the name of Christ and say, you know what, it was not worth it? Forget about you, Christ. Friends, we must stand up for Jesus. We must keep building that wall. When we give up, what will the future of the church hold? What about the next generation? What about young Caleb and the younger ones to come? We need to give them a place to worship God in spirit and in truth, friends. And it starts with me. When the threats come, I must be willing. I'll take you out of the picture right now and put myself right there. I must be willing, despite threats, to keep on working for the Lord. Did Nehemiah do that? Yes, he did. But look with me in verse 9. As we go through the lesson, you know where Nehemiah and the men had consolation? Not in themselves, but in God. Look with me in verse 9 of the text. With all the confusion, the conspiracies, all that was happening, look what Nehemiah did. Nevertheless, despite everything that was happening, we made our prayer to our God. Yeah. And because of them, we set a watch against them day and night. Friends, when these things come in our lives, do not run. Go down on our knees in prayer to God. Tell God that, God, we want to build these walls. We want the church to grow, Lord, but we are being opposed. Help us, oh Lord. If that is our desire, God will answer our prayers, friends. Someone may be asking that question tonight. Did God hear the prayers of Nehemiah and the men? Or did they just pray and nothing happened? Look with me in verse 15 of the text. Verse 15 of Nehemiah 4, it says, and it happened, yes it did, when our enemies heard that it was known to us, and that God had brought their plot to nothing. That all of us returned to the wall, everyone to his work. Friends, they prayed to God, and God brought the plans of the enemies to naught. Church, there's power in prayer tonight, friends. We ought not to give up despite the criticisms, conspiracies, complaints, and even the threats. Take all that to God in prayer. He cares for us, friends. He cares for us. The challenges will come. But as we close, notice this right here. That despite everything, the wall was built. It's recorded in Nehemiah 6 and verse 15 that they finished the wall in 52 days. That's a record-breaking time for a work that faced so much opposition. Can we do it today? Yes, we can, friends. But I want you to notice something, that Nehemiah was not the only one who built this wall. Notice, remember what we said in Nehemiah 4:6? So built we the wall, and the wall was joined together to the half thereof. Why? Because not Nehemiah only, the people had a mind to work. I cannot build that wall by myself. The men here alone cannot build that wall by themselves. We need each other, friends. I need you, and you need me. Together we will work and build these walls. And finally, verse 14 of the text. Let us never forget this, friends. Always remember what this is all about. Look in verse 14 of the text. Nehemiah 4:14. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles and to the leaders and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Why? Remember the Lord, friends. When fear comes into the picture, we push God out of it. Let us remember the Lord, great and awesome. We serve an awesome God. We sing that song every so often. And what else should we do with all that? Look at the text of verse 14. When we remember the Lord and we're not afraid, and fight for your brethren, fight for your sons, fight for your daughters, fight for your wives, and fight for your houses. We're not fighting with each other. We're fighting for each other. We're fighting so that the doors of the Cold Springs Church of Christ will remain open. We're fighting that the generation to come will have a place to worship. We're fighting so that doctrinal soundness will remain in the church. We're fighting so that we will speak where the Bible speaks. And the silent word is silent, friends. We're fighting to keep God in his house right here, so that he will not depart from our presence because of wrongdoing, but he will stay with us. Let us fight, friends. Fight to the end and never give up. There is a crown that awaits all those who fight. And that's what the book of Revelation is all about. Victory in Jesus. Will we give up tonight? Few in numbers or not, our God took few men and did a great job. No matter your age or your number, tonight God has a purpose for us in his kingdom. In the same book of Nehemiah 4, they said that with one hand they did the work, and with the other hand they held the sword, friends. We've been watching and praying, working and praying. With one hand we're doing the work, but on the other hand we're looking out for the adversary. Remember, he never wants anything good as it concerns God. He wants to tear down, but in the name of the Lord, we will arise and build. As together we stand and sing the song of encouragement.